Hello, I am Lily Cass, Opera Philadelphia Scholar in Residence, and it is my pleasure today to introduce you to Black Lodge, a film presentation featuring live performance. Because this is the world premiere of the film and its score, I cannot describe precisely what you will hear and see. That will be a surprise for all of us. What I can and will do is give you some context for this avant-garde work and its eclectic influences. Black Lodge was produced by Beth Morrison Projects, and it can be performed in multiple formats. The film can stand on its own, but it can also be performed with a live vocalist and/or a live band and/or a live string quartet. The presentation that you will see at the Philadelphia Film Center will feature all of these components in an engaging multimedia experience. Black Lodge's music is written by David T. Little, who is the composer in residence here at Opera Philadelphia from 2014 to 2017. You may have recently seen his Grammy-nominated opera film Soldier Songs on the Opera Philadelphia channel. For Black Lodge, Little collaborated with experimental poet Anne Waldman, opera, film, and theater director Michael Joseph McQuilkin, and the glam opera band Timor and the Dime Museum. Together, this powerhouse creative team has produced a multidimensional work with layers upon layers of meaning that are open to individual interpretation. Black Lodge thrives on fragmentation. The film does not have a clear plot. Rather, it presents a series of moments in the life of its protagonist, called simply the man, and the woman he loves, referred to only as the woman. The woman is played by Jennifer Harrison Newman, who also served as the film's choreographer. The woman is not a singing role. Rather, she communicates through dance and gesture. The man is played by Timor, a singer whose voice seamlessly navigates multiple genres and multiple octaves. We will see the man in several environments, most notably a desert, which is where the rest of the band is situated, wearing dark makeup and white clothing. There's also an idyllic garden in the spring where a string quartet is performing. There's a medical facility in which the man is restrained on a gurney, a cavernous industrial space with an old-fashioned television set and a pendulum-like swinging chair, and a mysterious red-curtained room with a bar. We cycle through these locations over the course of the film, often cutting back and forth quickly among several of them. All of the locations have a dreamlike quality, as if they are projections of the man's mind, with the editing representing his fragmented memories. The music, as sung by Timor and a backup chorus and played by the Dime Museum Band and a string quartet, is likewise hard to define. There are lilting lullabies, powerful electric guitar solos, and seemingly everything in between. Often, Little directly juxtaposes contrasting styles to create a maximally jarring effect that echoes that of the visual elements. The film purposefully provides a surfeit of sensory inputs to its audience, inspired by dramatist and theater theorist Antonin Artaud's ideas about what he called the theater of cruelty. Artaud, who lived from 1896 to 1948, thought that the audience's experience should be central to any theater piece, and that the best way to ensure this was to shock the audience into reacting. Artaud advocated for theater to give its audience a sensory overload and to allow audience members to access the deep meaning of the work directly through an emphasis on physical gesture rather than on the spoken text. Artaud was subjected to electroshock therapy more than 50 times throughout his life, and Black Lodge's scenes in a medical facility reference this experience. Artaud was far from the only inspiration for Black Lodge. Another major influence was the director David Lynch. In fact, the title Black Lodge will be familiar to fans of Lynch's cult favorite TV show Twin Peaks. In Twin Peaks, the Black Lodge is a mysterious location that seems to multiply spaces and people, There is an endless series of red curtains, and doppelgangers of characters appear, distinguished from the originals only by a milky film over their eyes. In this Black Lodge opera, Lynch's mystical and cryptic aesthetic and his focus on the deep psychology of his characters is very much present. And Waldman interpolates a piece of David Lynch's own writing, a recollection about his childhood, into the libretto, further emphasizing Lynch's impact on the work. We have said that the opera film does not have a linear plot, but what is it about? Who are the characters? Here we come to another major influence of this work, William S. Burroughs. Burroughs, who lived from 1914 to 1997, was a poet of the Beat generation, perhaps most famous for his novel called Naked Lunch. Burroughs was friends with Anne Waldman, as well as Allen Ginsberg and Jack Kerouac, whose character Old Bull Lee in On the Road was inspired by Burroughs himself. Burroughs was a complicated person who struggled with a drug addiction and had difficulty reconciling his rich inner life with his actions in the outside world. The character of the man is loosely inspired by the true figure of Burroughs, and even some of the more fantastical seeming occurrences in the film are indeed inspired by events that took place in Burroughs' actual life. In 1939, while experiencing mental distress, Burroughs cut off part of his finger, later writing about the experience in his short story, The Finger. In Black Lodge, the man cuts off a clay model of his finger on screen, the severing of his body part echoing the curious detachment the man seems to feel from his life, lost as he is in fragments of memories. Another key moment in William Burroughs' life was when he killed the love of his life, Joan Vollmer, during a party game in 1951, when he missed while trying to shoot a drinking glass off of her head. In Black Lodge, we see the man shoot the woman in a two-person game of Russian roulette. Even before this scene, the woman appears with a glass on her head, alternating with an apple, a reference to the story of William Tell, who shot an arrow into an apple balanced on his son's head to prove he was a good shot. The scenario for Black Lodge states that the man is stuck in a, and I quote, nightmarish bardo, a place between death and rebirth. Bardo is a term from Tibetan Buddhism, but we can interpret it as any kind of in-between state, between past and present, between conscious and subconscious, between sanity and madness, between understanding and confusion. I believe that the figures who influenced this piece, Artaud, Lynch, and Burroughs, along with the film's creative team, would all encourage you to try to stay in that in-between place as audience members. Allow yourself to be overwhelmed by the multiplicity of meanings in the visuals, text, and music, and see where it takes you. Thank you for listening to this talk, which we are recording here at the Kimmel Center, which you may hear in the background is under construction at the moment. So thank you for bearing with us with the background noise.